Those of you that were very kind enough to come out this afternoon who desire to speak have a number, and we will go in that sequence. Regretfully, from time constraints, if in fact someone does not respond to the number, that we will move to the next one. We would be very appreciative as a commission so that we can give everyone who desires to speak an opportunity that you will strictly limit your comments to 3 minutes, and we will try to monitor that time in a very respectful manner. Also, we would be most appreciative if you would not address issues dealing with the legalization. We are here to talk about decriminalization, not legalization, and we really don't want to broaden the subject at this time. And just to make it abundantly clear, I have no appetite for the legalization of marijuana. My interest in it came about primarily as what the report refers to as the collateral consequences. With that in mind, Senator Evan has been out in front on this issue for some period of time, and Adam, I'll certainly extend the courtesy to you to start off and set a very good example by remaining within the 3 minute limit.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out, well, first I want to thank Mr. Graber, because that was an amazingly thorough presentation and very helpful to me. But I just wanted to point out 2 things to members of the commission. One is there was a question of Colorado and Washington, and I wanted to point out that those are states where it's been legalized, not decriminalized. So that's a significant difference. And further, policy option number 2, when you make your considerations about removing the jail sentence as an option for punishment, actually would still carry the same collateral consequences as an unexpungible offense and still make a criminal offense. I did want to say, though, I appreciate your consideration of Senator Norman's request and of the letter from the Courts Committee referring the bills for study, and that we know that from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency that marijuana is demonstrably less harmful than other illegal substances, and that though there's a lack of evidence linking marijuana possession to negative health effects for adults, it still poses a significant burden on the criminal justice system. And Virginia still imposes significant punishments with significant costs, not only to the state, but also with long-lasting impacts to convicted individuals. And those negative impacts, as you heard some, were employment opportunities, student financial aid at the federal level, child custody determinations. And I spoke with a number of probationers myself in Alexandria, and I learned that the random drug testing that offenders are required to go through, it interrupts their employment because they get a notice. They have to call in every day on the phone, and they're told, okay, code A must come forward and be tested tomorrow. And if you have a job, to say to your employer, okay, I can't come into them being tested for drugs, is not a good thing to keep your employment. Also, the penalties are not consistently applied. And this is important. In Virginia, some Commonwealth attorneys do not even prosecute misdemeanor possession, but it's really interesting that they may not have access to a public defender in at least one jurisdiction. This is due to the practice of judges not appointing public defenders in cases where the Commonwealth's attorneys have waived the possibilities of jail time. And there's also, as you heard, significant racial disparity. And the penalties for simple marijuana possession have a significant economic impact. You'll probably hear from the ACLU later about the costs of enforcement under their 2013 formula, with the state police being able to save up to $33.5 million, judicial and legal institutions up to $23.3 million, and corrections saving millions as well. And those savings are prior to any that might be realized when you consider the economic impact of lost wages, foregone employment opportunities that accompany criminal charges. And further, decriminalizing would allow law enforcement to focus their efforts on violent crimes. And we know that rehabilitation resources in the Commonwealth are stretched. Right now, they're also being used as a punitive measure for marijuana possession for defendants who do not meet qualifying diagnostic criteria for a substance abuse disorder. In other words, people who don't need rehab are being put into rehab. And we're sending an equal percentage of people to treatment for heroin and opioids as marijuana. And we know that we're in the midst of an opioid crisis. So using rehab as a penalty for marijuana possession is taking space in those programs from those with life-threatening drug abuse issues. We know that there's substantial public support in Virginia, as you heard from your comments, and a VCU poll from January of 2016 shows that there were 80% of Virginians favor reducing penalty for small amount possession to a fine. And even though that exists, in 2013 we had one American across this country arrested every 37 seconds for possession. And in your deliberations, I hope that you'll consider whether marijuana use, often at a young age, as you saw in your study, should disqualify talented, capable individuals from receiving top security clearances that would allow them to serve their country later in life. And if you weigh the facts carefully, I'm confident your recommendations will recognize the benefits of decriminalization. The timer wasn't running, Mr. Chairman, but I hope I've been within my time.
You did splendid, Senator Evan, and thank you. And I would say this, that Senator Evan prepared what I thought was a very informative letter to the Crime Commission that laid out some other statistics that were not included in his further remarks. So if any of you in the audience would be interested, I'm sure that Senator Evan would be more than delighted to share that with you.
I would, sir. Thank you.
If the individual that has number 1 would please come to the dais. Oh, group 1, excuse me. Group 1.
There's more than one of us.
I encourage you, it is so nice to see you, and I have had the ability to listen to you and your compatriot on more than one occasion in my otherwise unillustrious career, but I would respectfully ask that you not be too redundant. So with that, hit it.
Since I'm the first one, I think I won't be redundant at all, but I want to tell you, Senator Norman, that this to me is the completion of a strange circle, because in 1991 I came to my first Crime Commission meeting and I handed out a sheet of paper about the harms of prohibition, and you took it and you showed it to the other members of the Crime Commission, and I really appreciated it then, and I really appreciated that now, what you're doing on this. My name's Lennis Worth. I'm the founder of Virginians Against Drug Violence, which is a loose organization of individuals who have questions and concerns about drug policy, and especially the relationship with negative social outcomes. And so I really appreciate you letting me speak here today. And I want to say that, and I am speaking as an individual, even though I founded that organization. But during the presentation, which I thought was thorough and excellent, I did notice a few things that I could contribute. First of all, the studies that were mentioned, I noticed that we checked with other states, we checked with prosecutors, we checked with law enforcement, but there were very serious organizations, I guess you'd call them think tanks, like the Drug Policy Foundation. And they do studies on some of these questions that Delegate Bell asked about, and have come up with all kinds of statistics and data. And I think that you all would be well advised to look at the studies that these organizations are producing, because they're scholarly in nature, and you would really benefit from that. Amongst those things, I think that we would look at particularly Delegate Bell's question about the uptick in use. Now, there has been an uptick in use in states that have legalized, and of course we're not considering that. But, and probably is in states that have decriminalized too, but we're not sure. But the uptick tends to be with older people. And that's because they're getting medical benefits. And they don't always want to, and I'm going to tell you something from my own personal experience. I want marijuana in the end, at the end, I know this is Decrim, but I want all the change we can, because I don't like to admit that there's anything wrong with me. And lastly, I would like to say that Where is the moral high ground in this issue? It's not with the stick. It's not with punishment. It's not with jail time. The moral high ground is with helping people. The moral high ground is with the carrot. Let's offer people something to improve their lives with, and it's not a criminal penalty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and you set a good example for Ray to stay within the 3 minutes.
Good luck with that.
I'm Roy Shera, I'm speaking as an individual, and I'd like to congratulate you. The idea of decriminalizing marijuana is only 45 years old now, so Virginia's catching up. I've been here before. Matter of fact, we were discussing the problems of correlating the levels of THC and its metabolites with driving impairment. I addressed this very body back in the late 70s on that issue, and what I propose is a combination of, is there a drug present in the body, and measure the impairment. Particularly with advances in technology since then, you can have an attaché case size unit that will measure the sort of complex reaction times and decision making that are required in a driving situation. Every state trooper could have one in their trunk. And this will give you a reliable method of determining intoxication. Getting back to the original question, what we've seen over the years, and I've seen it consistently in state and federal reports, is that the majority of drug arrests, nationwide and in Virginia, are for marijuana. The majority of marijuana arrests are for possession. The majority of possession cases are for quantities of half an ounce or less. And you look at the reports, the annual reports that the state police do, it used to be 2/3. Now I think it's down to only about 55%. That's an improvement, I guess. But if you look at how many arrests were made, marijuana. If you look at the street value of the drugs interdicted, marijuana. If you look at the number of doses confiscated, marijuana. You're spending the bulk of your money on the least harmful substance. Of course, it's a lot safer because marijuana users are unlikely to shoot you if they think you're an undercover agent. Be that as it may, I think we need to cut down the cost. It costs, what we've said, $80,000 a year to keep someone in jail. Sorry, $80 a day. That's if you can ever collect from the criminal. A criminal conviction, whether you are sent to jail or not, and you may not be sentenced to jail, you may just be booked in there and kept overnight until you can make bail. You may just have to stay there pending your trial.
Well, Roy, I need for you to stay within the 3 minutes, and I appreciate very much you sharing that.
I beg your pardon. I have a timer here, and I took my eye off it. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Well, one thing I'll say, you haven't taken your eye off the subject over many, many years. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Regina Whitsett, and I'm the Executive Director of SAFE. We are a Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition that serves Chesterfield County, and I'm also a member of Community Coalitions of Virginia. SAFE has provided leadership in marijuana prevention efforts in Virginia since 2014. I've actually had the privilege, or I should say not privilege, of going to Colorado and Washington and touring dispensaries and grows with law enforcement. SAFE has national experts that keep us informed about the current marijuana climate across the country. All of you have heard me for the past 3 years up here talking about these bills. I would like to say that SAFE is in opposition to decriminalization of simple possession of marijuana in Virginia. In studying decriminalization, it is important to understand that removing all sanctions for drug use and any accountability is not in the spirit of a pro-health drug policy. As was mentioned in the study report, according to federal law, marijuana is still an addictive, harmful Schedule I drug. Data continues to indicate countless people are not filling our jails for simple possession of marijuana. Marijuana possession cases are often incidental to other investigations involving serious crimes, to include robberies, shootings, burglaries, assaults, vandalism, and drug trafficking. And that information was relayed to us by our law enforcement partners. Decriminalization laws remove simple marijuana possession as an investigative tool for law enforcement officers and as a reason for probable cause. Decriminalization laws will give drug traffickers increased opportunities to support large quantities of marijuana through the Commonwealth. But the reason I'm really here is about our youth. Marijuana decriminalization will reduce the perception of harm and send a message to our youth and young adults that drug use is safe. Reduction in the perception of harm results in an increase in use. And in response to Senator Bell's question about reports, there is the Rocky Mountain HIDA report that shows after decriminalization and legalization that drug use in Colorado did rise significantly among youth and also 18 to 24-year-olds. Please protect our youth. There are already 3 legal drugs, and that is enough. We have tobacco, we have alcohol, and we have prescription drugs. Don't give the youth the message that another drug is okay. And with all due respect to you, Senator Norman, decriminalization is merely a step towards legalization of marijuana. And if decriminalization passes here in Virginia, we will have decriminalization and we will have medical marijuana as well with the oils. And the next step, the path that's covered in every state that's legalized, follows this path and pattern. And the next time they will be back to request recreational legalization of marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. What you do is safe. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Carrie Jones with the Greater Augusta Prevention Partners. I'm the coordinator for the GAP Coalition, and the GAP Coalition serves Stanton, Waynesboro, Augusta County. And we are in year 9 of a 10-year grant cycle. It's a grant funded by the Drug Free Communities Grant. And last year and this year, our grant focus is on marijuana. And we are opposed to the decriminalization of marijuana, as we see it as a pathway to recreational marijuana. The decriminalization of marijuana will link up the police in their efforts to be able to search people and vehicles during routine traffic stops when they smell marijuana. We only have to look to Colorado and Washington states to see how opening this door will be like opening Pandora's box. Wow, I was fast.
But we don't allow the transfer of time.
That's awesome.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Chairman Bell and members of the Virginia State Crime Commission, good afternoon. My name is Georgine Blumley, and I represent the AAA Clubs of Virginia. We're an organization representing motorists in the Commonwealth, and we're focused solely on the safety of motorists and those who share the roads with them. AAA does not have a position on the criminalization of marijuana, but we do believe that the General Assembly and the Governor should evaluate the impact that decriminalization may have on motorists and other road users prior to making any changes in the existing law. More specifically, we recommend the Crime Commission, as part of its ongoing study, evaluate the impact decriminalization would have on the number of individuals driving under the influence of marijuana, the potential impact on traffic safety, and the current adequacy of the Commonwealth's DUI and open container laws. As you know, drug driving is a growing concern, contributing to a rising number of traffic crashes, injuries, and fatalities. Although drug driving does include a variety of drugs, marijuana was the most prevalent drug found among drivers in roadside studies conducted by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. AAA is concerned about the negative effects negative traffic safety implications, and the current challenges in discerning and addressing marijuana-impaired driving. Research shows that marijuana can have an impairing effect on drivers, can decrease car handling, performance, and attention, while increasing reaction time, following distance, and lane deviation. Research also has found that mixing alcohol and marijuana produces a synergistic effect, one significantly greater than either drug on its own. States that have moved through decriminalization toward legalization have found they may be ill-prepared to handle that growing incidence of marijuana-impaired driving. Unlike alcohol, the presence of marijuana in the blood does not correlate with driver impairment due to the consumption of marijuana. There's no science to show that drivers reliably become impaired at specific levels of marijuana, i.e. the active THC in the blood. Depending on the person, drivers with relatively high levels of marijuana in their system may not be impaired, while others with low levels may be unsafe behind the wheel. The dangers of creating arbitrary cannabis limits is that some impaired drivers will be incorrectly deemed unimpaired, while others would be wrongly convicted. It should be noted that when decriminalization is often an initial step toward legalization, which AAA does oppose due to the negative effects of traffic safety. We also know that in states that have decriminalized, there have been some measurable increases in use. As the Commonwealth weighs the pros and cons of the important policy decision, it's our recommendation that the discussion include the potential impact on motorists and others who share the road and infrastructure. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration and your time.
Thank you for being with us and speaking on behalf of AAA. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. My name is Justin Streckle, and I'm the National Political Director for NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to engage in this thoughtful discussion, and in particular you, Senator Norman, for in 2015 when I had the honor of serving the legislative aid in the state of Virginia. I remember engaging in very high-minded dialogue about this topic with you, and it's great to hear that you're participating more thoroughly. Starting in Oregon in 1973, 22 states had removed the jailable possibility for possession of marijuana charge, and over 46 states throughout the country have liberalized their marijuana policies in some way, shape, or form. Particularly, I really would like to thank Mr. Draper, who's walking back in right now, and your team for your thoughtful report and the focus on the topic at hand, which is the decriminalization, not medical or adult use legalization. As we're seeing throughout the country, in the 22 states that have moved towards decriminalization, not a single state has reversed course and added offenses over which the lowest that they've rendered. This clearly shows an effectiveness. When we see these kind of policies enacted and maintained in states like Mississippi and Nebraska, surely Virginia can say that they can have better policies. Because at the end of the day, law enforcement resource allocation is a zero-sum game. At the time that the police officer spends arresting and processing a young man or woman, particularly a person of color, as resources that is not better advocated or better used fighting serious crime that we know is going on here in the state. The RAND Corporation, using data from the Center for Disease Control, found that over 60% of Americans now use cannabis at some point in their life. And they concluded that, quote, marijuana has no causal influence over hard drug inflation. Moreover, by the time these individuals reach age 30, most of them have significantly decreased their cannabis use or no longer indulge in the substance at all. Maintaining the criminalization of cannabis does nothing to benefit the citizens of your state, and it only leads to long-term collateral consequences. Thank you so much for your consideration.
I thank you for being with us, sir. We appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Jen Michelle Padini, Executive Director of Virginia NORML. Mr. Chairman, thank you for this opportunity to address the Commission in response to Mr. Draper's well-executed, meticulous report. Thank you, Senator Norman, for drafting the request to the Crime Commission and outlining such important and thoughtful questions. According to data from the Uniform Crime Reporting Program and the Virginia State Police, marijuana possession arrests in Virginia increased 76% from 2003 to 2014, 106% for African Americans, while during the same time period, the national average for marijuana possession arrests decreased 6.5%. Virginia has remained one of the most punitive states in the nation for marijuana possession, spending around $70 million and arresting over 22,000 annually for possession. As Mr. Draper alluded to, African Americans are disproportionately impacted by marijuana criminalization in Virginia. Comprising only 20% of Virginia's population, African Americans are arrested 3 times more than whites, despite equal usage rates. Virginia NORML supports the policy option of decriminalization with escalating penalty structure. In your deliberations, I hope you will consider that removal of jail time alone does not accomplish the intent of decriminalization, which is, of course, to reduce crime in the Commonwealth. And as Senator Evan mentioned, it also does not alleviate the overly punitive lifetime collateral consequences of a non-expungible offense. Thank you so much.
I thank you for being with us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for allowing me to testify. My name is Caitlin Becker. I'm with the Drug Policy Alliance. At this point, we can say that decriminalization is a proven policy. It treats drug use as a public health issue rather than a criminal justice issue. I believe that when we're weighing this consideration, our principal concern should be sparing the thousands of people who are arrested for and convicted with marijuana possession offenses. It's deeply, deeply concerning that 54% of arrestees are between the ages of 18 and 24. We're setting young people up to be saddled with a criminal record for the rest of their life. Equally disturbing are the overwhelming racial disparities in Virginia's enforcement of marijuana laws. Study after study shows that drug use is stable across race, yet Black Virginians are disproportionately arrested. While Black Virginians only make up around 20% of the population, they make up around half of all arrestees, and this is simply unacceptable. DPA supports policy option 3, which is full decriminalization rather than simply removing jail time. And as you weigh the path forward here, I would ask that you remember that arrest, conviction, and detainment have far more negative health consequences than marijuana use does. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you being with us. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee, Dr. Commission. My name is Charlie Schmidt. I'm with the ACLU of Virginia, and on behalf of our 40,000 members across the state, we thank you all for undertaking this study, and we'd like to speak in favor, obviously, of decriminalization. We did a national study a few years ago that looked at this issue. Senator Evan mentioned that. I'm happy to provide copies of that to the Commission. As have been stated before, a lot of the statistics that I was going to relay have already been relayed, and as was presented in the presentation, that this, particularly for arrests, it has a disparaging impact on minorities in the Commonwealth. And while it was just mentioned, rates of usage are about the same, but arrests are about 3 times more likely overall if you're Black to be arrested for marijuana possession. In some jurisdictions, that jumps to 8 times more likely. So 3 times more likely is across the entire, taken as an average. But certain jurisdictions that we had stated are far more aggressive, and I think this is a step in the right direction to sort of rein in that policy that really has a negative effect on young people and minority populations in this Commonwealth. So, thank you.
Thank you for being with us, sir. This gentleman appears to be wrapping up on behalf of Group 1, so those of you that are in Group 2, if you would be so kind to get in line, that would be most appreciated. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Senator, members of the Commission. I'm David Ledbetter. I'm the Commonwealth's Attorney for the City of Waynesboro. I'm here also on behalf of the Virginia Association of Commonwealth's Attorneys. Unlike the speakers before me, I unfortunately cannot state that we have come to a position yet as an association. We've discussed it in the past. We have not come to a consensus yet. I know we have upcoming meetings, and we will also, of course, be individually studying any bills that may be coming forth in the upcoming session. We'll take positions on those bills. Given that we do not have a position, there are 2 common themes, I think, that come across our meetings is in majority, if not, in most, if not the majority of jurisdictions, we do not jail for first offense marijuana possession, even on individuals that have previously had the benefit of a first offender who may have failed out. Even when they come back before the courts again, most often we are seeking fines. Particularly in my jurisdiction, City of Waynesboro, I do not seek jail sentences on marijuana possession on small amounts. The second theme that seems to cut across our meetings and is concerned all Commonwealth attorneys is decriminalization is to lose the ability to have the presence or odor of marijuana be the basis of probable cause for the search of a motor vehicle. Because most often the first thing that is detected is marijuana that then leads us to harder narcotics, firearms, things of that nature. So certainly, if it is decriminalized, we would love to, would certainly want to retain the ability to use as a basis for motor vehicle search. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us, sir. We appreciate it. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Shirley Wright, and I'm representing the Virginia State Conference of the NAACP. And I'd like to thank you very much for your report. You said a lot of things that I would have said, so therefore I will not repeat them. But what I would like to reiterate is that racial bias, in my opinion, has a lot to do with disparate arrest rates of minorities. As you know, there's violence between the police officers and people of color. There's training that is required from them. So when you're looking at marijuana arrest, racial bias is a form of that, and that leads to a higher disparate rate. The professional license being revoked from individuals, that takes away their ability to take care of their families. So as we look at decriminalizing marijuana, we need to look at the impact it has had on minority communities, especially as housing, because one person in that household makes a mistake, the entire family is impacted. You look at the death rates. In 2016, there were 62,000 people who died of heroin opioid arrest. There were 88,000 who died of alcohol-related deaths. There are zero deaths related to marijuana. There are such things as conflict of interest. What I have learned since I have been advocating for the decriminalization of marijuana is that many attorneys who are also delegates, senators, or legislators are also the ones who are voting on these laws. So now you are not passing a decriminalization law, another law that would benefit the citizens because it impacts the income. I ask you that you strongly consider the impact that your decision has a life, or will have on the life of these young kids. As they say, from 18 to 24. We are destroying their lives for the rest of their lives, and I'm sure that is not what you want to do. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for being here. The work that you do on behalf of the NAACP, I would have to take exception to your comments about the conflict of interest. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is James Staines. I'm representing myself. 78% of the people in Virginia want decriminalization. 61% want full legalization in America, 61%. Not 61% smoke marijuana, 61% of people want legalization of marijuana. I have 2 college kids. I don't want them ruining their life because they smoke pot. I don't have a problem as a parent with them smoking pot. I have a problem with them doing everything else, drinking beer, everything else, not smoking marijuana. But I don't want them to get caught and their lives ruined. No, I'm serious. I don't want their lives ruined because somebody that's never smoked it themselves was talking about what a terrible drug it is. If you haven't done it, you don't know about it. Pot is non-addictive. It is some psychological effects that you might, when you wane off of it, you might still want it. But it's non-physically addictive. You don't go into ETs, you don't have problems like that. I have a problem with, we're still studying it. Everybody here wants to study to death. It's been 80 years that it's been illegal. Why are we waiting until now, 80 years later, to study? It's crazy. You know, I pay taxes. Y'all aren't doing what the people want. Right now, the people want it legalized, decriminalized, and not to be put in jail for it. And you people work for me. I don't work for y'all, and y'all aren't representing me.
is Ryan here. I'm a medical student at DCU, just across the street. I'm here to talk on behalf of the young people. I never used it myself, but I had a lot of friends that used it in college. Several of them are in medical school right now with me across the country. And I guess my biggest concern is that if they had been caught in Virginia, they wouldn't have been able to go to medical school. They wouldn't have been able to help underserved communities with their license to practice medicine because they tried this one substance in college. Like 18 to 24-year-olds. That's mostly college students. And it just seems mind-boggling to me that a substance that doesn't really kill people has been categorized as something that will put you in jail and ruin the rest of your life, whereas something like alcohol, something that causes a liver disease, tobacco, something that causes lung cancer, these things are perfectly fine. And a young person can do that and kill themselves in the course of years with that. But with marijuana, their entire life is just gone. And that's mind-boggling. I was afraid to ever use it in college because of that reason. And my parents actually live in Oregon. It's legalized there. It was decriminalized a long time ago. After it was legalized, my parents said, you know, nothing would happen. That's just a sample size of one. But I'm not here to talk on behalf of any organization. I'm just here to give my perspective as a younger person and just say that I feel like it's kind of, I guess, stupid that marijuana is still illegal in Virginia. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being here, sir. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. My name is Susanna Truscar. I'm here as a citizen, and I'm representing two of my friends who use marijuana as a medicine. One is a veteran, a retired veteran, 64 years old. The other one is a mid-40s man with his own business. Both of these people have severe issues. One is rheumatoid arthritis, and the other one is a spinal injury. Neither of them want to take narcotics. Their doctors are more than happy to hand them prescriptions for narcotics. The worst part is that the medicine that they make with this stuff works better for them than OxyContin or the rheumatoid drugs. And if they get caught with it, they get in trouble. And they're using it as a medicine. It's not recreational. My one friend literally cannot get out of bed in the morning. She can't even lie in bed without pain. And she's worried about getting in trouble for buying something that she makes medicine with. And I would just like to see at least decriminalization. Do we really want to put a 64-year-old Navy veteran in jail? I don't. I don't want my tax money to go for that. And I would thank you very much for your time and consideration on this matter.
Thank you for coming up here today, man. We appreciate it. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Al Justice. I'm a longtime Virginian, 37 years. And I've just watched the changes over Virginia from time. And it seems like they're trying to make it into a state that, I guess, brings in young people and tourism. But you're not going to do that with the old man state that Virginia currently has. I've been to Colorado, I've been to Washington State, I've been to Oregon. They didn't think about the money brought in from people visiting Virginia when they thought about the millions that they were going to lose because of not letting you keep your driver's license. If I can't keep my license, how can they pay you the money that y'all going to find? You know, you're going to find somebody afford about $400 to $800 for a simple possession of marijuana when someone that's selling cigarettes to kids only get $100 fine. That's not even following them across the state. But if somebody get a simple possession of marijuana, that's following them everywhere. And I just think that it's all about the mindset. If Virginia wants to move forward and be a better state, then they need to change their mindset. I'm a homeowner here. And I can tell you, once I pay my house off, I'm out of Virginia. And it's just because of the old state mentality. And you're not going to bring more innovation to our state with this old state mentality. And that's all I have to say.
But we don't want you to leave Virginia, sir.
This is my home.
I don't know if you're saying if I'm old or not, but I'm subject to new ideas, all right?
Yeah, this is my home, and I have sons here, but I also want, things to change. I think with the development of VCU, we've made a lot of changes from the old 6th Street Marketplace, June Jubilee. Like I said, I've been here all my life, and I've just watched how the state has changed. So if we want to move forward and be a prosperous state, we're going to have to make certain changes, and certain changes must be geared to the younger generation, which is the future.
Thank you for being here, sir. We appreciate it. Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you?
Well, thank you. Good afternoon.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank you so much. To the Commissioner of the Bells and the members of the Commission, Senator Norman, my name is Sherry Neal. I currently am the Intergovernmental Affairs Manager for the City of Portsmouth. I want to thank Senator Norman, Senator Evans, Senator Lucas for bringing this matter forward. I just want to touch quickly on a couple of things. First of all, in the city's legislative package coming up before General Assembly 2018, we do support the criminalization of small amounts of marijuana with parameters based around how it can be used and where it can be used, as is done in other places in the United States. Basically because of the collateral consequences of criminal arrests and convictions in Virginia. I'd also like to add that, not speaking for VML, but in the Virginia Municipal League's legislative policies, they also are supporting this as well. Changing subjects a little bit, prior to my working for the City of Portsmouth, I was the Chief Legislative Assistant for Senator Maxwell. In 2002, 2003, we took on the issue of collateral consequences of criminal convictions and arrests in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and they're huge. And I would like to say that it took 14 years to advance this subject to this point. We did have some successes along the way, but we still need to move forward even further. One of the things that was pointed out in the PowerPoint was that there is no difference between amounts when they consider possession. You can get found with something less than this amount, and you're in possession. If you have it, just holding it in your hand, and you haven't used it, and you're seeing, you're in possession. And therefore, you're subject to losing your license, paying for a lawyer, going to the court, doing all of the drug tests, so on and so forth. The penalties do outweigh the crime. It needs to be balanced. It seriously needs to be balanced. I had a question that came to mind during the presentation when we were talking about loss of funds from Federal Highway Association for the driver's license fees. So in the states that have opted out, how do they replace the funds? Do they replace it through the fines that's associated with using it outside of the parameters based around criminalization? Is that something that you could possibly look at? I'd also like to say that I have seen several studies that opioid use has decreased in areas where it has either been decriminalized or legalized. As you all know, that's a huge problem right now nationwide. Lastly, I wanted to add, about 2 or 3 years ago, I attended an International City Managers Association conference in Seattle. And while at that conference, there was a forum on decriminalization, legalization. And at that forum, you had people in law enforcement, you had people who were city managers who worked in various cities where they had already legalized, and there were people in there who were looking at legalizing. And the question came up about social ills and how have they increased since legalizing or decriminalizing. And the answer was no. To one of you, question about strength, and talking to some of the dispensaries, the strength comes out of the fact that they say because it's a new industry, there's competition amongst the providers. So one's trying to make something stronger than the other so they can sell their product. But like with any other industry, over time, once it's regulated, similar to alcohol, similar to alcohol, it will all level out. Thank you very much.
There's one thing you learned from our dear friend Senator Maxwell, you were loquacious.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you again. Yes,
Marla Watson, and I'm here as a concerned parent. I have 2 teenagers at home. I'm also a member of the local Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. And I wanted to make it clear that I am very much opposed to decriminalization of marijuana. The Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, that's a public agency within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They are a lead substance abuse federal agency. Their data reveals on youth ages 12 to 17, youth reporting past 30-day usage of marijuana, they are 10 times more likely to use alcohol, cigarettes, and other illicit drugs than youth in that same age bracket, 12 to 17, that did not report marijuana usage in the past 30 days. So to that is an alarming statistic to me. The illegal aspect of marijuana is a deterrent for youth. It's a deterrent for youth usage, and removing that deterrent will increase usage and access. Marijuana usage among youth often leads to harsher drugs, which is just stated by the SAMHSA report. So I would ask you today to please consider the health of my children, the health of the youth, and the Commonwealth before you take it into consideration decriminalizing marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and I'm sure you're a great mom, so good afternoon, sir.
My name is Richard Kennedy, and I'm probably not a typical witness because I haven't tried weed yet, but it's on my bucket list. I'm an engineer who got a PhD in economics and went on to serve 31 years as a CIA analyst, was awarded the Career Intelligence